My wife called me in a panic that Friday morning, asking me to come home. I left the family business my father left to me and my brother and rushed home, sensing something serious. Beth, a stay-at-home mom, never disturbed me at work unless it was urgent. I worried something had happened to one of our teenage daughters at school, perhaps a sports injury since they were very athletic. My daughters meant the world to me, both growing into beautiful young women like their mother. We ran the largest electrical company in the state. I managed the commercial side while my brother handled residential. We had tripled our volume each year for the past 6 years, making our mother proud. Last year, we netted $5 million for the first time in the company's 50-year history. Since our father's pass away, we had turned it into a very successful business, now valued at $20 million. My mother, still the majority shareholder with 52%, made John the president, and my brother and I each owned 24%. After our father died, my mother entrusted me with her personal investments, which I aggressively managed with her broker, yielding great results. When I arrived home, movers were packing our belongings. Beth, standing by her new car I bought her, informed me she was leaving for good. Our daughters had already moved without my knowledge. She handed me divorce papers stating she had fallen out of love and was with someone else. She left abruptly, ending our 17-year marriage coldly, without any explanation or chance to discuss it with our daughters. I suspected she had met someone online, but quickly realized it was local. I asked the movers for the delivery address and was shocked to recognize it. I tipped the driver, asked him to lock up, and made a stop to verify the address. What I saw shattered my life. Beth had left me for someone we both knew well. This betrayal was devastating, made worse by who she was leaving me for. Beth, her brother, and I were inseparable in our youth, though we drifted apart as we grew older. Her brother, now a Marine, remained a good friend, upholding the morals and principles of his upbringing. With my father's business booming, I spent most of my spare time helping out. Sometimes I'd receive stock for upcoming jobs. I asked why he hadn't used his name for the business. He said, "Tate & Sons is overused and often fails. Parrish, your mother's maiden name, adds spirituality." My older brother John, 3 years my senior, often took me along when delivering materials. He got paid, but I used the time to learn. After 10th grade, I started an apprenticeship to earn my electrical license while continuing my education online. I graduated high school before finishing my apprenticeship and began a business management degree, which helped expand our business. John learned the business by working every job and picked up some bad habits along the way. I started bidding on small commercial contracts, completing them under budget and saving customers money. This word-of-mouth growth exceeded our expectations. My father said I was the brain of the company, John was the brawn, and both were essential for success. At 20, living on my own, John called me drunk, needing a ride from a wild party. I went to get him and found Beth needing a ride too. Her father was strict, and she feared his reaction if she didn't get home. Beth, now 17 and stunning, had become a beautiful young woman with mesmerizing blue eyes and a captivating smile. I agreed to drive her home. Her father was relieved to see me instead of her date, saying, "Beth, you should have told me your date was James." A week later, Beth found me at my father's shop, asking me to take her to her senior prom. I agreed after getting her father's permission. That night, we decided to be exclusive, marking the start of our relationship. Now it was ending. 20 minutes later, I arrived at our office. Angry and determined, I went to John's office. His door was shut, and his receptionist said he was on a serious personal call and had locked the door for privacy. "Mary," I said, "please come into my brother's office with me. I need you to witness what I have to say." Mary saw the anger on my face and knew it was serious. "Of course," she replied. I then kicked the door open, barging in. John looked up in surprise and quickly ended his call, giving me his full attention. "You need to get this business appraised and buy my shares out by the time my divorce is final. Do you understand that, John?" Mary was shocked. She had never heard me raise my voice before. "What's this about?" John asked. "The movers gave me Beth's new address. I saw my daughters there," I said. "She's staying with me until she finds a place," John replied coldly. "That's a lie," I said. "She told me she was moving in with the man she loves and handed me divorce papers." John turned pale, speechless. Mary looked horrified, realizing John had been unfaithful. "How long have you been lovers?" I demanded. "Were those afternoons I covered for you so you could be with her? I should get tested for STDs given the women you've been with." John went even paler. "This isn't the time or place to discuss this," he said quietly. "Screw you. There will never be a right time for this. Go to the bank or put the business up for sale. We're done as partners and brothers." "James, there must be another way. We need you," John pleaded. "We can talk when you're calmer." In pure anger, I picked up his desk phone and called our mother, putting it on speaker. "Mom, I have bad news," I said. "Today is my last day. I'm resigning effective immediately. John needs to buy out my shares." "What?" she said, shocked. "You love that business. What happened?" "Ask John. He's not in his office because his secret lover is moving in today. They're getting married after her divorce. You might want to visit and meet her." I hung up. John was furious but couldn't speak. He had been bragging about his new love for months at family dinners. "Mary, follow me to my office to ensure I don't take anything belonging to the company. I want a signed statement that I turned over all keys and only took personal items." John was visibly angrier as I openly expressed my distrust of him. Before leaving, I said, "Should I walk out backwards so you can't stab me in the back again? What you and Beth did is worse than if you had just shot me." We walked back to my office where my receptionist was working. "Joanne, please come in and witness what's about to happen. Mary will appreciate having another witness," I said. "James, what's going on?" Joanne asked. "I've quit because John has stolen my wife and children," I replied. I was called home to be served with divorce papers. The movers gave me Beth's new address, which turned out to be John's. Both our long-term executive assistants were shocked. These wonderful ladies had been our support for years, and I deeply respected them. "Let's list everything James takes and the keys he gives us," Mary suggested. "We'll type it up, witness it, and make 5 copies. Joanne and I will each take a copy home for safekeeping." Her suggestion showed their trust in the company president. It made me wonder what else my brother was hiding. It took about an hour to complete. I called security to escort me out and verify what I was taking. I watched as the ladies put the extra copies in their purses. John had rushed out without saying goodbye, hoping to avoid the drama. Everyone saw the top 2 executive assistants escorting me out with tears in their eyes. I kissed them on the cheek and thanked them for their support. I stepped out, took the single box from the security officer, and left. As soon as I left, everyone wanted to know what happened. The ladies explained what they knew. I opened my trunk, threw the box in, and closed it. On my way through town, I stopped at a real estate office and listed the house. I gave the representative my wife's cell number, saying she would need her signature. I told her my soon-to-be ex would decide the list price. At home, I found only their personal belongings, and our daughter's bedroom furniture were taken. I turned off my cell phone. I read the divorce papers. The grounds were emotional and mental cruelty. She was asking for primary custody of our daughters, Bijou and Bree, offering me supervised visitation once a month. Beth thought I was too strict because I wouldn't allow our 13 and 15-year-old daughters to date without chaperones. She felt my old-fashioned views were too restrictive for today's society. I had argued that I didn't want our daughters to ruin their lives by getting pregnant in school. I wanted the best for them, but Beth thought my views were hurting their development. She felt I was treating our daughters like her father had treated her, and she had rebelled against him. Beth was going for my throat because of our differing views on parenting. I poured myself a stiff drink and tried to find something on TV to distract me, but only found outdated reruns. I must have passed out drunk because I woke up with a hangover on the living room sofa. I showered, shaved, and got ready for the day. After breakfast, I did my usual Saturday morning chores. Around 1 p.m., I turned my cell phone back on. I had messages from my mother, brother, wife, and daughters. I believed my daughters were in on what was happening and sided with their mother. The only message I trusted was from my mother. The rest didn't matter to me. I listened to the messages, then deleted them. My wife's message said we could reach an agreement once I calmed down. The real estate agent called me. "Mr. Tate, your wife finally showed up this morning, but she was not happy," Miss Waterston said. "She was shocked you're including the furniture with the house. After seeing comparable homes, she agreed to add $20,000 for the furniture." "Thank you for the update," I replied. "I want it sold quickly because it holds too many memories." "She broke down, not expecting you to do this," Miss Waterston continued. I asked her, "What did you expect? You left him for his brother. She was surprised about you demanding to be bought out from the family company." "I just want to get away from them," I said. "In the divorce, she's trying to take the kids completely from me." She seemed shocked. I told her she might fool others, but I know how people like her think. "Miss Waterston, I've arranged for a good divorce lawyer. I'll text you her details," I said. I thanked her and hung up. Just then, I saw my sister Connie's car pull in. I finished making my coffee and went to let her in. It must be important for you to drive halfway across the state, I said. Mom was devastated when she found Beth and your daughters at John's place, Connie said. She couldn't believe it. How long has it been going on? I asked. Mom found out from Beth that it's been about 2 years, Connie replied. How could I have been so blind? I said. Before we talk more, read the divorce papers. I'll get you some coffee. Connie read the papers, noting how exaggerated everything was. Beth wants you out of your daughters' lives, Connie said. Most of her claims are nonsense. Mom doesn't want you leaving the family business. So Mom wants me to accept being John's cuck and sissy cow? I asked, noting Connie's shock. Oh my God, Connie swore, surprising me as she never used foul language. How do I explain this to Mom? Connie asked. She won't understand the full betrayal. Mom might see the infidelity and breakup, but not why I'm leaving the company, I said. I can't stay knowing John turned my wife and children against me just to keep Mom's approval. Your husband makes business deals. He could find a buyer for the company. John has left you no choice. You have to write him out of your life, Connie said. He knew what he was doing, and it was deliberate. Connie called her husband, explaining everything. When she hung up, she said, He'll have a team appraise the company Monday. I need to convince Mom it's the best solution. I pulled out the last 5 years of financial records and handed them to her. Your husband will need these, I said. What about Bijou and Bree? Connie asked. That's up to Judge Donald McDonald. I wanted Dale Britton, but he's tied up with a big case. Her lawyer is painting an ugly picture, I said. Connie and I talked briefly before she left to speak with our mother. I didn't sleep well that night, missing my wife beside me. I decided to leave town for a few days after meeting the lawyer, needing space to think clearly. Connie called after she and Mom spoke with the pastor. He said, the one who has been injured the most may never get over it. What they did to him was despicable, but common today because love and decency have lost their value. They are just tools to manipulate and control others. Mom was shocked when the pastor said, James isn't the first to be destroyed by family and won't be the last. Mom agreed to sell the business, Connie explained, not because of what John did, but because she knows John would ruin it without you. She wants to know who should take your place. Does she understand I consider John dead to me? I asked. Yes, and why? Connie replied. I had to explain what being a cuck means. Mom swore she'd liquidate Beth if she saw her again. Tell Mom to appoint Carl Robertson as president. He knows everything I do and can prevent John from overriding him. It's essential for getting the best price for the company. Mom needs to demote John publicly, I said. Should we warn John? Connie asked. No. If Mom can't do it, she should appoint you as CEO until the company is sold. I must stay out of it to avoid it being used against me in divorce court. Connie agreed to check with her husband and later texted, I'm the new CEO. I'll implement your suggestions tomorrow. I was having brunch when Beth called. This time I answered. Can we talk? Beth asked. No. If you or your lover contact me again, I'll file maltreatment charges. Everything will be settled in court, I said. We need to discuss Bijou and Bree, Beth said. There's no reason for you to leave the family business now. We'll sort this out in court, I said. I'm requesting paternity tests to determine if they are John's or mine. We all deserve the truth, and I'll never return to anything involving him. Beth gasped. They are yours, and you know it. I thought I had a loving wife until Friday. I was wrong about that, so I must consider I might not be their father either. John could have been deceiving me for years, I said. Beth started crying, but I hung up. I then called my former assistant, Joanne, for advice from her husband, David, who had gone through a tough divorce. David arrived, read the divorce petition, and I explained everything. Let's be clear, David said. You don't know when the affair started other than hearsay. Yes, that's true, I said. In court, you'll be justified in requesting paternity tests due to the family situation. The way you found out implies long-term deception. Judge Donald McDonald will need biological proof before making any rulings, David said. Is the judge that strict? I asked. Yes. My divorce took 6 months, but his rulings prioritized our children's needs. It was tough, but ultimately, he made the right decision, David explained. I offered David a drink, and we were chatting about his relationship with Joanne when a truck pulled into my driveway. I looked out the window and saw it was my brother, John. That a-hole dares to show up here after what he did, I said. I wish I had one of Dad's .22s. David said, Sit down. I'll handle this. If he won't leave, I'll show him my badge. He doesn't want to deal with the Cape Girardeau police. He opened the front door and lowered the screen window so I could hear their conversation. John slammed his truck door and yelled, "Where's my stupid brother?" I told him we could work it out, but he wouldn't listen. Now he has to because I need to straighten him out. If he won't listen, I'll shove my fist down his throat. "No," David said. "Go home and cool down before you do something you'll regret." "Screw you. Get out of my way." I left Beth in tears because he's questioning the paternity of his daughters. He needs to be straightened out, and I'm the one to do it. "So, when did the affair start?" David asked. 5 years ago, if it's any of your business," John replied. "Interesting, because Beth told your mother yesterday it was 2 years ago," David said, showing his badge. "I have to wonder what the truth is, since both of you are making the other look like a liar." John turned white as David continued. "After making James an unknowing cuck, you expected him to accept it and carry on as if nothing happened. Was it your plan to break him and make him your submissive sissy? What gives you the right to think your brother should do as you say?" John was stunned into silence, revealing they hadn't planned this out. David added, "I wonder what the judge will say about this recorded conversation. I suggest you get back in the truck and prepare Beth for the paternity test. Your story lacks credibility, and any further explanations will be seen as more lies." I watched John walk back to his truck, realizing things were not going as planned. David waited until John drove away before coming back inside. "What's your lawyer's name?" he asked. "I'll contact her on Monday and send a copy of this recording." I gave him the details. "Why did you bring your police cam?" I asked. "It's standard in domestic situations," David explained. "When Joanne told me why you needed to talk, I knew anything could happen, so I came prepared." "Let Joanne know I'm leaving town after seeing the lawyer," I said. "It's best I stay away for a while." "Is it anything the cops might be called about?" David asked. "Our older sister is now the CEO of the family company. Tomorrow she'll appoint Carl Robertson as president. My brother will be demoted to vice president," I explained. "This is happening." "Why?" David asked. "Mom doesn't want my brother destroying what my father and I built before she finds a buyer," I said. "I agree with your reasoning," David said. "You should be packed to leave right after your lawyer's appointment. John will see it as all you're doing. From what I've learned, he's hot-headed and reacts without thinking. He could do anything." After David left, I cleaned up the kitchen and went to Ace Hardware for a new lock set for all the doors. It took 2 hours to install. I was about to change the house security system code when my phone rang. It was Beth's father. "What's going on, James?" Beth's father asked. "My granddaughters have been calling from an unknown number because Beth confiscated their phones and yours is never on." "Did you ask Beth why?" I asked. "She says it's personal and will explain later. Katie and I want answers now." "Beth moved out on Friday," I said. "She called me home as the movers finished and served me divorce papers. She said she's in love with another man and that his name doesn't matter." "Are you serious?" he asked quietly. "Yes. The movers gave me her new address because Beth wouldn't. She moved in with my older brother. They've been in a relationship for 2 to 5 years, depending on who you ask. She doesn't want me to have any contact with Bijou and Bree and is asking for 1 hour a month supervised visits." "Why would she do that?" "You've been a great father." "She probably doubts I'm their biological father. My lawyer will request DNA tests to confirm. Also, I'm no longer involved in the family business." "It sounds like she knows who their real father is. What should I tell my granddaughters?" "Tell them the truth, which they haven't been getting from their mother." After we said goodbye, I reset all the codes. Then I went to Golden Corral for a bite. I had just left the lawyer's office at 11 a.m. She agreed it was a mess, but thought the video David sent would undermine the plaintiff's credibility. She believed their stupidity had put me in the driver's seat. I had canceled all of Beth's debit and credit cards and removed her from all bank accounts. My next stop was the real estate office to give them the new house key and access code. Then, I hit the road south. About an hour later, Joanne called. "Just checking you're on the road," she said. "Connie just walked in to meet Carl Robertson." "I left about an hour ago after dropping off the keys," I said, heading south with no particular destination. "We'll call to update you," Joanne said. "Text me first so I can pull over," I replied. I stopped at a rest area and finally let my emotions out. After a while, a police cruiser pulled in. The officer got out and approached me. "I saw you pull in 2 hours ago and got concerned," he said. "I've been through a lot emotionally and decided not to drive," I explained. "Going through a divorce?" he asked with a knowing smile. "Yes, how did you guess?" "The road south with no destination is a common choice," he said, handing me a cold soda from his cooler. We chatted until a text message came in. "Need privacy?" he asked. "No, you might find this interesting," I said, putting the call on speaker. "How did it go, Joanne?" "Carl accepted the president position temporarily, knowing it was your suggestion," Joanne said. "He and Connie informed John of his removal. John didn't take it well and refused the vice president position. Carl told him, 'I guess you've decided to quit. Let me call security to escort you out.' John cursed and blamed you for everything." "So my brother is unemployed like me," I said. "That must hurt his pride." "Off the record, James, I think that was Connie and your mother's plan all along," Joanne said. "Expect a call from Connie shortly." The police officer saw me smile as I began to explain. "My wife of 17 years left me for my brother. Last Friday, I resigned as vice president from the family business and demanded they buy out my shares. They didn't see it coming. I had just finished explaining when Connie called, so I put her on speaker. "When can you get back here?" Connie asked. "Why? It sounds like you have everything under control," I said. "Carl is perfect for the job. My husband lined up financing so you can buy John's shares. Mom wants him out. He'll use a business loan for it. Carl agreed to be vice president if you return as president." "Fine. I'll meet you at Mom's around 6 tonight," I said. "Tell Joanne to order new office furniture and repaint the offices. If she gets it right, I'll give her a 10% raise." We said goodbye, and I smiled. "What's the name of your company?" the officer asked. "Parish Electrical. We're in about a third of the state and always expanding." "Your logo is 'No job is too big or too small,'" he said. "That's right, it was my dad's favorite saying," I replied. We talked for a bit more. He gave me his business card and directions to reverse my route. I appreciated his kindness as he followed me out. Back in town, I noted his card's details before heading to my parents' place around 5:30. My mother met me at the door, and we shared a quiet moment. Connie was at the airport picking up her husband. Mom and I chatted until my phone rang. It was Beth's father. "Hi, Dad. What's up?" I answered. "Have you heard rumors about your brother in the workyards?" he asked. "Let me step out before I answer," I said. "Yes, but I've seen no proof. Why?" "He has illegal videos on his home computer. Bijou and Bree found them and called us. They're scared to be near him. We picked them up from school, but I don't know what to do." "Call Joe, explain, and say you're giving the kids sanctuary. Use a throwaway phone to avoid detection," I advised. "Why call Joanne?" he asked. "Her husband's a cop. He'll handle it," I said. "Thanks for helping my daughters. Text me your number." I talked to my daughters until my mom said the police wanted to speak with me. I ended the call and texted the number to my mother-in-law's phone before clearing my messages. "David, good to see you. What's up?" "Your daughters are missing, and your phone was busy. Beth filed a kidnapping complaint against you." I looked at my concerned mother. "When did they disappear?" I asked. "After school at 2:30, David said. I handed him the state trooper's card. "Call him. You'll understand." David called, and my mother saw his relieved smile as the call ended. "I should have known," David said. "You have the perfect alibi. You were an hour away sharing a soda with another officer when your daughters disappeared." David then received 5 text messages in a row and stepped outside to make a call. When he returned, he asked to speak with me privately. We went into another room and closed the door. "What do you know about the rumors about your brother?" he asked. "People say he likes them younger than he should," I said. "I always kept my girlfriends away from him because I had suspicions." "Why?" "Your daughters found something disturbing on his computer. They told someone at school and are now in sanctuary while we investigate," David said. I sat down, head in hands. "When I reconnected with Beth at 17, she ran with a wild crowd. I picked up my drunk brother that night, and she asked for a ride home. I wonder if John was her date." David said, "I wish you could prove that." David whispered, "Tell your daughter's protectors we won't charge them. I need a few days to resolve this. Your mistake was giving them my wife's number. It's Beth's parents. I had no clue," I said, "but I told them to use a disposable phone." David laughed. "Be thankful for caring in-laws. I'll get a warrant for your brother's computer and might need your daughters to testify." We returned to the living room, and I escorted the officers to the door. Just as I opened it, Beth walked in. "Are you arresting James for kidnapping?" she asked. "No," David said. "He has an alibi. He was with a police officer when your kids disappeared." Beth's face turned white. "Maybe the girls ran away because they don't want to live with you," I said. "David, should I go home in case they show up?" "Smart idea. They can decide where they want to live," David said with a grin. Call me if they show up." After the officer left, I turned to Beth. "Was my brother your date the night I gave you a ride home when he was drunk?" Her expression confirmed it. "I guess I know how long you've been with him." My mother, furious, yelled, "James, throw her out now! If I see her again, I'll use one of my husband's rifles." "Run, Beth," I said. "She might shoot you now." Beth fled in fear. I couldn't help but laugh. "Well played, Mom," I said. "She believed it." "I meant it," she replied. I called Beth's father. "Can you bring Mom and the kids to my mother's for dinner?" "Are you serious?" he asked. "We're celebrating my daughter's return. No more problems with Beth or the police." "We're on our way," he said. "Mom, the girls need to stay here until I can get furniture. Is that okay?" "Why don't you all move here until the divorce is final?" Mom suggested. "I'll take them shopping for new clothes tomorrow." "Sounds good to me," I said. "Make sure they get new cell phones. Beth took theirs to prevent contact with me." Mom informed the kitchen staff about the extra dinner guests. I brought in my suitcases and suits. Mom showed me my room. Beth was not happy. She was worried sick about her daughters and was sure James had taken them. She was proven wrong, and her true relationship with John was exposed. John had taken her pureness before she reconnected with James. After their second daughter was born, John decided he had to reclaim Beth. She resisted for a long time. One Wednesday afternoon, while James was on a business trip, John showed up at their house. He took her in his arms, kissed her, and soon they were having lovemaking. John declared loudly that he was claiming Beth as his woman. She allowed him to take her 3 times that afternoon, engaging in raw, animalistic lovemaking. Afterwards, John whispered to her that he had always loved her and felt complete only with her. That night, she found him unclothed in her bed, and they made love until they fell asleep. Thursday, after sending the girls to school, they had lovemaking all day. On Friday, John came back and reinforced his claim over her. She admitted she was owned by him and showed her submission by giving him a head before James came home and kissed her deeply. Beth believed she would have gotten pregnant by John if she hadn't had her tubes tied. 6 months ago, after almost being caught by her eldest daughter, John decided they should move in together. They thought James would accept their relationship after some time, but he didn't. Instead, he caused a storm, resigning from his job and questioning the paternity of his daughters. John returned home one afternoon to tell Beth he had been pushed out of the company by their new CEO, his sister. They realized they had unintentionally destroyed James's life. Now they faced the consequences of their actions, including societal judgment branding James a cuck. Even Beth's parents were ignoring her calls and texts. She needed to bridge the gap with James and start talking. She called him to ask if he had heard anything about their daughters. James answered on the 3rd ring. "James, have you heard anything about the kids?" she asked. "No, but I don't think you need to worry," he said. "Why do you feel that way?" she asked. "Because if they are as lucky as you, they'll be picked up by a man like John, who will train them to be eager and willing, just like he did to you." Beth ended the call and sat crying in her car. James had cruelly pointed out how people probably viewed her relationship with John. He had always feared his daughters would become easy, and saw John as someone who always had a woman. In James's eyes, John had just moved the biggest one ever into his home. Beth felt ashamed, used, and owned in a way she had never experienced before. She realized how different James and John were. James wanted her to be a better person, filled with love and quality. John wanted a classy woman who would fulfill his desires. She had abandoned her morals and principles, and now everyone knew it. At my mother's place, we celebrated with my daughters. Beth's parents and I shared hugs, relieved after 4 trying days. The girls were delighted to see Aunt Connie and Uncle Tom. During the meal, we discussed our temporary plans until the divorce was finalized, which the girls were happy about. We decided to leave business matters for the next day. Beth's father and I took a walk to talk privately. "James, how long has my daughter's relationship with your brother been going on?" he asked. "Since the first time I brought her home from a wild party my brother was attending." Beth admitted that John was her date that night, I said. His eyes teared up. "Then why did Beth start chasing you?" "I believe John and Beth weren't serious back then," I said. "That night she saw me differently. Our early years of marriage were good, but John started desiring what I had and began chasing her. John was always more aggressive. Your father told me John felt he was always trying to live up to you because your standards were so high." "I never knew that. I said. It's sad John dragged Beth down with him. The police will seize his computer this week. If they find what we suspect, Beth will get supervised visitation of her daughters. She deserves it, Beth's dad said. Some people have to learn the hard way. I arrived late to the office Tuesday morning, enjoying reconnecting with my daughters. My mother was thrilled to have a girls' day out with her granddaughters. At the office, employees lined up, clapping. Carl Robertson, Mary, and Joanne shook my hand. I told Carl we'd redo his office after finishing the president's office. The newspaper announced my appointment as president and Carl's promotion to vice president, noting John Tate was no longer with the company. The phones started ringing with new business opportunities, most because John was no longer involved. It made me wonder how much business he had cost us over the years. I left the office to pick up the rest of my clothes from my former home, knowing Mom and the girls were still shopping. While loading my car, John attacked me from behind. The last time we fought, he had stricken me badly. I grabbed a tire iron and shot his leg, making him release me. A neighbor called the cops, who broke up the fight and arrested John for being the aggressor and drinking. I collapsed and woke up in the hospital with cracked ribs, internal bleeding, and bruises all over my body. My mother said I looked like a character from Soylent Green. John was charged with aggravated assault. My daughters were emotionally upset by my condition and what had happened. Bijou and Bree, what happened to me was because your mother and uncle acted on their emotions without thinking, I said. People like that lose their ability to see things clearly, making their situations worse. I'll recover, but they may not. The girls and my mother stayed with me until I fell asleep. The next morning, Connie, Mom, and Tom visited. To get the loan Tom wanted, we had to expand north. A competitor had filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy, and Tom suggested we take over their contracts and make a low offer on their equipment and buildings. Why not just buy controlling interest in their shares? I asked. Tom explained that their debt was too high, and we'd be stuck with costly union contracts. Mom then surprised us by saying, James has effectively been running the company for years. I want to give him 27% of the shares to have complete control because we can't count on John agreeing to sell. The rest goes to Connie. Thanks to James's investment skills, I have enough to live comfortably. Does anyone owe headache? She asked. I do, I said. I'll agree if Tom becomes our CFO. He may take a pay cut, but that's the sacrifice. Connie teared up because our father had never accepted Tom. My offer meant everything to her. I'll even cover your moving costs and house purchase if you say yes. Tom, flabbergasted, shook my hand and said, I'd be honored. Mom was thrilled. Her daughter was moving home. After they left, I called Carl to discuss our plans. He mentioned that the assets and contracts we were pursuing had political support. I stressed that if the court accepted our offer, we needed to act quickly. I was released from the hospital on Friday. Mom picked me up and drove me to my house to pack. Connie would arrive the next morning to house hunt. My body was healing, and my lawyer had secured restraining orders against Beth and John. Beth's parents had visited 3 times. It's been a quiet few days, Mom said. It gave the girls time to adjust. I've had to explain the consequences of people's choices. How are my daughters emotionally? I asked. They're handling it better than I would have, she said. But they need some private time with you. They'll have the whole weekend with me if needed, I said. I'll stop by the motor vehicle office for Bree's learner's permit materials. Tom has given notice and completed the company's valuation. Connie will bring the report. His firm offered him a huge raise to stay, but he turned it down, saying his sign-on bonus was a new house. Tom has the knowledge we need for this growth, I said. Bringing him into the family business is overdue. Why wasn't it done before? Mom asked. The president wouldn't approve it, I said. When we arrived at my house, I thanked her and went inside. I found a letter from Beth in the mail and threw it away. It was too little. Too late. How can someone be sorry for deliberate actions? I called a cleaning service to remove the food, clean the place, and shut off the water and equipment. I gave them the alarm code and said I'd drop off a key in 2 hours. It took about an hour to pack my clothes and personal items. Before leaving, I shaved, leaving a mustache and goatee for a new look. David called to inform me that John's place had been raided and his computer seized. John's lawyer was negotiating a plea deal. My daughters were already back from school at Mom's. They helped me move and unpack my clothes. Afterward, we laid on the bed and had a long chat. The topic of lovemaking came up. When you have lovemaking just for lovemaking, it's to satisfy animalistic needs, I explained. Making love is about putting the other person first, strengthening the bond. What brought Uncle John and Mom together? Bijou asked. Was it love or just physical attraction? Your uncle wanted what I had, I said. He let his desire grow until he acted on it. At first, your mother may have been overwhelmed, but she became attracted to its raw intensity. Each encounter reminded them of that first day, pulling them together. Eventually, their desire led to a long-term relationship built on lies and deceit. I worried I made it sound complicated, but Bree surprised me by saying, basically, they went for what the other was offering without enough morals to walk away. What do you mean? Bijou asked. My red dress that you want so much, Bree said. I taunt you with it because I know you want it. That's what Mom and Uncle John did with their physical appearances. Bree left the room and returned with the red dress Bijou wanted. Handing it to her sister, she said, what I did was wrong like them, but to a lesser degree. I'm sorry, sis. The dress is yours. I got up, opened the dresser's top drawer, grabbed the booklet and tossed it to Bree, saying, start studying. You can get your learner's permit in 3 months. Bree squealed with delight. Thank you, Daddy. My daughters were growing up and had learned an important life lesson. I was very proud of them. Mom asked what they wanted for supper, and they chose mac and cheese. We had a delightful meal with pork chops and baked beans. After supper, still weak and recovering, I went to bed early. Around midnight, Bijou crawled into bed with me. As I cuddled her, I couldn't help thinking that Beth would have twisted this innocent moment into something inappropriate. Connie brought me a proposal for the bankruptcy court that needed my signature. If approved, we'd double our size. Carl and I reviewed and signed it on Monday. Joanne sent it to the state capitol by courier. I informed Joanne she'd now earn $70,000 annually, effective immediately. Later, Joanne closed my office door for a private conversation. David wants you to know what's going on, she said. You have my attention, I replied. The images on your brother's computer are of underage local girls, Joanne explained. David suspects it's a trophy list of girls John took advantage of, including Beth. This can be used in your divorce to question his motives for wanting Beth to move in, implying he sought access to your daughters. I'm not surprised, I said. Workers had mentioned John's pictures of conquests. John was 23 when he was with Beth at 17, legally statutory assault. This pattern will help in my divorce, but we need to figure out how to use it. David will prepare an internal report, Joanne said. It will be up to the district attorney to decide on the charges. David will bring a copy home for you. Sounds good. Tell David I owe him one, I said. David was overwhelmed by your generosity, Joanne said. Mary has also been rewarded with a promotion to junior management. Connie's husband is joining as CFO. We need to find a qualified assistant within our staff. Once we pick her, we'll discuss her new responsibilities and use John's former office furniture for her setup. Why? We might double our size soon and go statewide. There will be days when management is tied up or out of the office, I explained. You and Mary, as executive assistants, will make decisions on our behalf once fully trained. So we need to ensure we can trust the new assistant like you trust us, she said. Any issues with Mary and the new assistant will be your responsibility. If you need advice, you can always ask me, I said. Joanne left with a proud look. When I left for the day, Mary and Joanne were deep in discussion. Carl told me, the new structure is brilliant. We're planning for the new openings if our offer is accepted. Human Resources is compiling a list for relocation and promotion. Good thing I included a 30-day notice before acceptance to prepare, I said. Connie's husband Tom is joining as CFO. Without his financing arrangements, we couldn't have done this. John will be contacted about buying out his shares this week. Anything happening on the divorce end? Carl asked. We have a court hearing this week for the blood tests, I said. We were the last case called before Judge Donald McDonald that Friday. Contrary to his reputation, the judge was not a tall or broad man. He was about 5'10" and 180 pounds, appearing to be in his late 50s. My lawyer explained the relationship between Beth, John, and me, detailing how Beth and I had reconnected and how I discovered her affair with my brother. She presented an affidavit from my mother stating Beth admitted the affair had been ongoing for 2 years and played a video recording from David, which caught the judge's interest. I explained what happened the day Beth accused me of kidnapping my children, and the judge looked increasingly concerned. Beth's lawyer tried to counter our claims but struggled. The judge finally spoke. There's enough evidence to suggest an ongoing affair between Beth and John Tate, implying one brother may have tried to pass off his parentage on the other. A DNA test is the only way to determine the children's true parentage. The judge continued. John Tate's disclosures to the cop and his response are crucial. The divorce will be granted to James Tate on the grounds of infidelity. Beth was devastated, and John glared at me in rage. The judge implied they had been manipulating me for years. As we were leaving, I noticed Beth's parents and her older brother preparing to exit the courtroom, looking pained. When Beth approached them, they turned their backs on her, signifying that she was now shunned by them due to their religious views. I approached Beth with my lawyer. Beth, you must be proud. You've destroyed 2 families in less than a month. Bijou and Bree are doing well. As we left, Beth started to cry. Outside, her family waited for me. Mom, Dad, do you want the girls for the weekend? I asked. Mom hugged me, saying, we'd love to. Beth's brother, Ted, extended his hand. Good to see you, old friend. If my daughters don't tire you out tomorrow, I said. Let's go out for a late supper and a few beers. I'm coming home for good, Ted said. 20 years is enough. I'm here to house hunt and find a job. My phone rang. It was Joanne. The 30-day countdown is on, she said excitedly. Thanks. Let Carl know I found the head for our resource department if I can convince him to join us. How did it go in divorce court? Joanne asked. I'll explain when I get back, I said. Turning to Ted, I offered, how about starting at $60,000 a year? After 6 months, you could be head of Parrish's new resource department. Interested? What's involved? Ted asked. Managing purchasing, distribution, and inventory for 3 hubs. Supplies for retail stores and commercial sites will be delivered from these hubs, I explained. Of course, I'll take it, Ted said. James, Beth's dad added, show him your house. If he's interested, I'll cover his down payment. Ted and his wife decided to make an offer on the house at full price. I accepted, and all that remained was Beth's signature. Ted was amazed at how easily they could start over. I stopped at a wine shop and picked up 2 bottles of wine, cheese, and crackers before heading back to the office. The upper management team had a small celebration before calling it a night. My daughters called to ask if they could go with their grandparents for the weekend. I pretended to be surprised, but said, go ahead and have fun. When I returned to my mother's, I told her about my day. Ted is getting a great deal on the house. The items you're including are worth more than they're paying. Ted's family will be well set up. No matter what Beth did, Ted will be diligent. You always take the high road, Mom said. Your father would be proud, just as I am. Thank you, Mom. It means a lot, especially since I'm still hurting because I still love her, I said. By the way, John sold his shares to me for $5 million through my lawyer, so I guess I'm staying on the board. What motivated him? I asked. He said he was never happy in the industry and stayed because it was family-owned. They're moving to Florida to develop property he owns there, Mom explained. I smiled, knowing our business was worth over $40 million, according to Tom's report. We secured $15 million, spending $10 to buy assets and contracts up north for pennies on the dollar. Tom believed we could recoup close to $7 million after streamlining operations. We would rebrand the fleet and use local contractors, incentivizing them with a 10% Christmas bonus, tax-free. This strategy had always improved customer satisfaction. Mom dragged me to a community fundraiser for a family raising money for their daughter's cancer treatment. There, I met Dr. Tamara Braden, their doctor. I wasn't looking, but she caught my eye. I called our accountant and arranged a $50,000 donation to cover the medical bills. Tamara and I connected over our divorces. When I presented the paid-in-full receipt to the family, Tamara whispered, I'm so impressed. I'm taking you home for dinner. I laughed and said, then you'll have to drive me home because I came with my mother. She laughed. You can't be serious. That's my mother, Ruth, over there, I pointed. Ruth Parrish. She's one of our greatest contributors, Tamara said. I didn't know the company was named after her. Tamara smiled and asked, what was wrong with the woman divorcing you? She got involved with a man with no morals. It's sad because they're both going down. Ted's wife approached us, saying, Tamara, if you need me to start early, I can. I'm not going back with Ted. The kids and I are staying. James, what are you doing here? Jackie asked. I was just talking to Tamara, I said. My mother's over there watching me. How do you know James? Tamara asked. He's divorcing my sister-in-law and will be Ted's new boss. He gave us a great deal on his old house, Jackie said. Why? Tamara asked. No matter what Ted's sister did, Ted is family, I said. If you need any furniture, I have some you can have, Tamara offered. Ted's parents bought the kids' bedroom furniture this morning, Jackie said, after the sale was confirmed. When Beth signed the agreement, Ted and I let the ladies talk and walked off. Beth is really struggling with depression, he said. I told her she did it to herself, but everyone else is hurting too, even your daughters. No one understands why you did it. Not even you, Ted. She doesn't know. It's going to get worse for her before it gets better, I I said. John's past behavior is going to become very public. Take it easy with Tamara. She's a beautiful woman and is hurting as much as you, Ted said. She's always been a keeper. Tamara took my hand and said, "Let's go. I promised you dinner, and we need to shop for a few things." Mom watched us leave. Tamara handed me the keys and asked me to drive to Food City, a small grocery store known for its meat selection. She offered to let me wait, but I went in with her. "What's on the menu?" I asked. "Steak, salad, and dessert, if you have room," Tamara said. "Sounds good," I replied. "Let's get a couple of bottles of red wine to go with it." It was after midnight when I got home. Tamara and I had a wonderful evening and planned to meet again the following Saturday. I had the best night's sleep since Beth left. Mom dragged me to church on Sunday. Connie found and put an offer on a house. I told her to submit the purchase agreement to accounting for the check. The girls met their mother for lunch at the mall and later told me it didn't go well. They revealed I had met someone and hoped she would help me heal. They also told Beth what they found on John's computer the first time she heard about it. Beth was devastated, knowing she lost the chance for sole custody of our daughters. The girls believed she was depressed. Meanwhile, the district attorney laid multiple charges of statutory assault against John. He informed the parents of John's previous sufferers that John had moved in a woman with 2 minor daughters. Most agreed to press charges to protect those girls. John was arrested the next day at home in front of Beth. She realized she would never get custody of her children. What her divorce lawyer wrote in the original petition was coming true for her, not James. 2 months after meeting Tamara, John was out on bail. Beth and I finalized the divorce, with her receiving $4 million. She got no shares. DNA tests confirmed Bijou and Bree were my biological daughters. I got sole custody and Beth had liberal visitation rights, as long as it wasn't in John's presence. During mediation, I pointed out John might have wanted her to move in to access my daughters. Hearing this broke Beth. The money I gave her would allow for a quality life if invested properly. I provided her with names of 2 investment advisors. When the divorce was finalized, Connie and Tom moved back with their 5 kids. Mom was delighted to get to know them. She said her life was filled with more love than she had lost. And I saw the truth in that. Connie remained CEO. John's reputation was destroyed, and even his lifelong friends turned against him. His legal bills were mounting. My daughters believed their mother would dump him once the divorce was final. They were concerned about her depression. The takeover was progressing well. We caught up on the contracts delayed by bankruptcy and were ahead of schedule. Most contracts would end up costing less than agreed. We decided to rebate 10% after the final payment was received. We cut labor costs by 50%. I flew out to see the changes and new buildings we acquired. Excess properties were put up for sale at appraised value. Human resources worked with former employees, and over half became contractors at our new retail locations. We gave them interest-free loans to buy trucks and equipment from us at wholesale prices, along with a QuickBooks accounting program. Ted's first major purchase cut our costs per item by 20% due to increased volume and skilled negotiations. He reorganized our approach, significantly reducing handling costs, proving he was the right choice. Ted and Jackie loved their new home and were slowly personalizing it. Upper management was thrilled because write-offs and losses were cut by 2/3. We suspected those in power wanted the bankruptcy handled quietly to hide certain things, and we were the only offer. Tom hired his old firm to appraise our value due to our growth. Mom and I were preparing for a barbecue at her place, where Tamara would meet everyone for the first time. I picked up Tamara early so she could meet my daughters before the crowd arrived. Tamara looked stunning in a white dress with monarch butterfly embroidery. We shared a few kisses before heading out. We arrived at Mom's holding hands, and Bijou and Bree came over. Sensing my nervousness, Tamara said, "Relax." After introductions, Bijou said, "If you're my dad's girlfriend, he picked a good one." Tamara admitted she was as nervous as I was. The party was a success, and Tamara fit in quickly with my family. Ted, noticing, said, "Looks like you two are falling in love." He suggested we go dancing at Bithia's later, and I agreed. David informed me that the DA thought John would get at least 7 years due to the number of parents standing against him. "Joanne thinks Tamara is great for you, but worries you'll mess it up," David said. I joked, "Why do women always think it's the man's fault?" Tamara and I watched the swimmers by the pool, and she noticed my discomfort with my daughter's swimsuits. "You're old-fashioned," she said. "Was your father like that?" "Yes," I replied. "He wanted us to be our best and believed actions spoke louder than words. Sadly, that's what drove Beth away." "If my first husband was like you, we'd still be married," Tamara said. and we shared a kiss. Bree teased, "Cool it, Dad. She's not our new mom yet." I ran into the pool to play with my daughters, and Tamara watched us. Later, the girls took pictures and sent them to their mother, showing it was serious. The food was excellent, and I thanked the kitchen staff. Tamara and I were inseparable. We met Ted and Jackie at an Irish restaurant, danced until closing, and I walked Tamara to her door. The next day, we shopped before joining my family for dinner. Bijou texted, "Where are you? We're waiting." Tamara and I arrived, and Bijou said, "You got some explaining to do, Dad." I grinned, which caught my sister and mother's attention. I asked for champagne and glasses for everyone. Tamara had her hands behind her back, and my mother smiled, realizing what was happening. I announced, "Tamara and I got engaged this afternoon." The room erupted in joy. Bree sent a video to her mom, who later took an overdose of sleeping pills and never woke up. John and Beth blamed each other for their problems, realizing their relationship was based on lust, not love. Everyone took her self-destruction hard. At Beth's grave, John said, "I'm sorry for everything." I replied, "I don't believe you," and walked away. That night, John drank most of a bottle of Jack, then used his first weapon to end his life, leaving a note saying, "I'm sorry." A week before Labor Day, Carl, Tom, Mary, Joanne, and Lucy came in with cake and champagne. "What's the celebration for?" I asked. "We paid off the loan in full," Tom said. "We're debt-free." "Thank God," I said. "I never want another 6 months like the last." "It wasn't all bad," Tom said. "I'm looking forward to being your best man in 8 days, but I never want to hear you say we had to get married." Everyone laughed, knowing tomorrow was 2 months along.